So PlayFab exists in order to give developers the ability to focus their time on the part of the game that's fun. The thing that brings players into the game, brings them back to the game time and time again, and quite frankly, the reason that game developers got into it in the first place is because they want to make great experiences for players. They don't want to spend all their time building out a back-end service and then maintaining and supporting it for the life of the title. That's us. Well, if they've got a lot of experience building back-end services, that's certainly an option. But even if they have that experience, I'd still advise them to use our service. And it has to do with the ongoing maintenance and support and continual update that they'll need to do for the service. We will continually be making PlayFab better. We will always be optimizing it, adding new features. They'd be taking on all that work themselves. PlayFab is built on a web API backend, so we're effectively completely platform agnostic. You can build a game on any platform that can make an HTTP call using PlayFab. We started by using .NET Reflection to build out our own SDK generator. That SDK generator is used to create all the SDKs you can find on our site. We've created them for all the major engines, for all the major programming languages. But in addition, we make the SDK generator itself and the templates we use for it available to developers. So if there's something that they need that isn't already on our site, they can take our templates, build their own, and use the generator to make their own version of our SDK and keep it up to date as we add new features. Getting started with PlayFab is really easy. Let me walk you through a demonstration of exactly how you would get set up with an account, create a title, and then sign into that title and actually start making your first calls. The first step is obviously creating your own account. So here we go into signing in. I'm going to create an account using my own PlayFab credentials. You'll note that I can use the plus sign here to create a test account fairly easily. Make up a quick password for you here. Okay. There we go. Now, we send out a verification email. Once you've created your account, go ahead and find the verification email we sent and click accept. And you're done. And as you can see when you sign in, your studio's unnamed and there's no titles. So let's go ahead and create a title. So you click provision first game. And let's just call it test title. And we're shipping on every conceivable platform. So let's check them all. It's a multiplayer game, synchronous, maybe we're making a shooter. It's a competitive game. And we're going to be going with the premium tier. So once the title has been created, you'll see it in your dashboard. As you can see, test title, and the title ID 4CE2. So that's used to uniquely identify your title in the service, and it's also part of every API call that you make into the service. So at the top of the screen, there's a number of steps that walk you through all the essentials for getting started using PlayFab. But let's go to your title dashboard first. So here's the dashboard for a basic title in test mode in our service. The section in the middle here, total DAU, total API calls, shows you where you are in terms of the number of users you've had sign in and the number of API calls you've made into the service. Titles in test do have a limit of 1,000 daily users and 100,000 API calls. Once you go live with your title, that goes away entirely. In the settings, you'll see the title ID. This is the PlayFab API endpoint that I mentioned, how you make all the calls to the service. And then this is your API secret. This is used for any server or admin API calls into the service in order to have a secure way for you to communicate with us for server-side authoritative calls. This should never be shipped with your title. It needs to be kept entirely secret within your company. The publisher ID is the final thing on this page. This isn't something that you'll need to use in your own code. It's here for information purposes. What it represents is a common space which is for all players across all your titles. So once a player signs into one of your titles, then he can use the same account to sign into all of your titles. It also lets you share data across all of your titles so that if a player plays one, then you can use data from that experience in another, say to enable some extra goodie you want to give a player for having taken some action in the first game. Now I'm going to show you actually making some calls against your title. I like to use Postman for this, so I'm first going to take the title ID and put it into the environment configuration for Postman. So we've got your title ID set. Now let's get your secret key so that I can make any server calls. All right, we're set. So I've pre-built a bunch of API calls in my Postman in a collection. And the first one we're going to use is register PlayFab user. So I'll create a simple test account. Now you'll notice that I'm using Postman's environment variables to make my job a lot easier. So for example, the title ID is being pulled from the environment variable that I just set. I send the call off and I get back the response. In the response, you'll see a session ticket which uniquely identifies the player for the current gameplay session. I'm going to set that as the session token in the environment variable that I've already created in my Postman configuration. Now that it's set, that means I'll be able to use it for all the other calls I'm going to make. Currently, the session ticket expires after 24 hours. So whenever you make any call to the service, it's important to always check to make sure that the response doesn't indicate that the ticket has expired. If the session ticket has expired, you'll want to sign the player in again, preferably using one of our low or zero friction sign-in mechanisms like login with iOS device ID or login with Android device ID. Using these, you can sign the player in without any interaction with the player at all. Because once you've created an account and you have the player signed into it, using any other sign-in mechanism attaches that identity to the original player account so that you can then use any of the sign-in mechanisms to sign into the same account again and again. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also write data into the publisher space so that you can then share it across all your titles. In this case, if you wanted to write to user read write data, you would use update user publisher data and get user publisher data. So as you can see, it's really easy to get started using PlayFab. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let us know. Just come to playfab.com and click on the help link.